Good afternoon. Welcome to the June edition in our supply chain management webinar system. A few housekeeping things before we get started. If you have any questions during the webinar, hit the raise a hand icon on your control panel and I will attempt to answer them during the webinar. If I don't get to answer your questions, stick around at the end of the webinar and I'll stay on the line until I answer any and all questions. Okay, so let's get started here. Service inventory. What we're going to talk about today is what qualifies as a service industry. Then we're going to look at where the line is drawn between a manufacturing industry and a service industry. And finally, we'll wind up with the continuum of service organizations. So let's get started. Service industries. In its narrowest sense, an organization that provides an intangible product. Think of a doctor giving medical advice to a patient, or an attorney giving legal advice to a client. Both of these are classic examples of service organizations because there's no tangible product there. But look at some other service organizations. Airlines. They provide a service transporting people from one place to another via an airplane. However, they have an inventory that they need in order to make that service work. They need fuel for the airplanes. They need food and beverages for the passengers. Another example, a realtor. A realtor provides a service. They facilitate the transfer of ownership of a house, usually one of the biggest assets that we have. They make it happen between seller and buyer. But in order to make that service a reality, they have to have an inventory of houses. Another example of a service industry is construction. Construction, they literally put together a product based on the specifications of the customer itself. They provide a service, the expertise to do the framing, the drywall, the electrical, the plumbing. They provide services, but they need an inventory of things like pipe and 2x4s and sheetrock and drywall and electrical cable and switches and everything else. So service industries can be described in a very narrow sense, the doctor and the lawyer, or in a much broader sense, and basically any organization that is not doing farming, mining, or manufacturing can qualify as a service industry. So to start off with, we've looked at what qualifies as a service industry. Now, let's take a look at where the line is drawn between manufacturing industries and service industries. In its classic environment, Henry Ford was a typical manufacturing industry. He built cars, Model Ts in this example. He owned the entire manufacturing process from where they dug the raw material out of the ground. They had furnaces that made the steel that was then used for the frames and the engines and all the other components of the car, and then they assembled the car. They had a finished product itself. But this line between manufacturing and service industries is not clearly defined. Take a look at this. Go to a nice restaurant. They're a service industry. Their service is to prepare the food in whatever manner you would like. They need inventory of the food in order to provide the service. Another example is third-party logistics. Think of when you place an order online for a new computer. You pick the RAM, the drive, the graphic accelerator card, all of the features and options you can pick when you're specifying a computer. Third-party logistics organization, like this picture of this Amazon facility, they don't make a product. They provide a service that does the final assembly and testing of that computer, and then they ship it to you. So even though they are a service industry, they can still need inventory, example, the restaurant and or Amazon, and they deliver a finished product, but actually what they are doing is providing the service of assembly work. So there's no clear definition. It isn't just service industries don't have inventory. Wrong. Service industries can or can't have inventory. All right, so now we've looked at what qualifies as a service industry, and we've taken a brief look at that very muddy line between manufacturing and service industries. Now we're going to look at a concept called the continuum of service industries. The continuum is based on whether the organization provides a service to facilitate the sale of a product, or the reverse of it. They provide a product to facilitate the sale of a service. One that we're very familiar with are movie theaters. Movie theaters provide a service. They project a movie onto the screen that we enjoy watching. But if you take a close look at the people in this theater, they have drinks and food and everything. This is a pretty nice theater because they've got tables and that to hold everything. The service that the movie theater provides facilitates the sale of the product. The product is what we get at the concession stand. The popcorn, the candies, the hot dogs, the sodas and everything. If we didn't provide the service of showing the movie, then we wouldn't be able to sell the product, which is the popcorn and all that other stuff. And oh, by the way, that's where a major portion of a movie theater's revenue comes from, is the sale of not the movie, but the drinks and the food that go along with it. Another example of this thing where there is a service provided in order to facilitate the sale of a product. Go to a ball game at a minor league or a professional park. The service is providing an area for you to watch a ball game between two competing teams. That's the service. The product that then enables them to sell to us are those $9 and $10 containers of beer and those $7 and $8 hot dogs. If we didn't have the ball game, they wouldn't be able to sell the beer and the hot dogs. So now let's look at the other side of the coin here. The other side of the coin is a provider that sells a product to facilitate the sale of a service. And a good example of this is a car dealership. Car dealerships, we all think they make a lot of money selling the car. Now, to be honest with you, how much money they make is been a topic of discussion for a long time. I bought a lot of new cars and tried to figure out exactly what the dealer's cost was so that I could give them a reasonable markup. But you see, no matter how much or how little money they make on any individual sale of a brand new car, in this case, the Chevy dealership selling this nice, beautiful Chevy in a color that is absolutely gorgeous, they make a one-shot sale there. They get the money, whatever it is, and it's done. But That's not their major objective. Their major objective is to sell that product so that then when it needs its regularly scheduled maintenance, you bring that car back to their service organization where they get paid in a continuing stream to actually do the service and repairs on your vehicle. Now, whether it's an in-warranty repair or it's just a regular maintenance repair or something like that, it doesn't matter where the dealership gets paid for the service, whether it comes from the manufacturer as part of warranty repairs or whether it comes from the car owner as just regular maintenance, things like changing the oil, rotating the tires, putting new plugs in and stuff like that. The auto manufacturer sells the product once, the car, and what that drives is a continuing revenue stream for them of periodic services. And they can actually forecast when those services are going to happen based on the cars that they sell. Because think of it, I bought a SUV about a year ago from the dealership down the street from me. And those of you who know me, and most of you on the webinar today know me personally, I put on about 35,000 miles a year on my vehicles. The interesting thing on this Ford Escape that I have is that when it's time for the regular oil change, there's a little message that pops up on the dashboard display saying, hey, you got to change your oil. That's calibrated. They know when that message is going to come in. Therefore, they can forecast the number of customers that they have that are using their services, and then they can calculate, okay, when was the last time this car was in? What did we do? And they can actually then plan how much revenue they're going to get the next time I take that car in for an oil change. And they do things like rotate the tires, change the windshield wiper blades, change the air filter for the interior compartment. They sold a product once that allowed them to then have a continuing relationship where they can sell the service. So just remember, in the continuum, they either sell a service to facilitate the sale of a product, which is the movie theater example, or they sell a product to facilitate the sale of a service, which is the car dealership. So what we looked at over the past almost 15 minutes now is what qualifies as a service industry. And remember, in its narrower sense, it's things like doctors and lawyers that don't actually have a tangible product. 2, organizations like restaurants and realtors and construction. Then we looked at the line between manufacturing and service. And here's where we get muddied, because it's really, what are they manufacturing? And if you go back to the Amazon fulfillment center, which is assembling PCs, yeah, they're making a tangible product, but that's not their end thing. What their end thing is providing that service. And finally, we looked at the 2 ends of the continuum of service organizations. An organization that sells a service to facilitate the sale of a product, and the other side of the continuum, an organization that sells a product to facilitate the sale of a service. So that's it for this month.